ओम नमः श्री यतिराजाय विवेकानंद सूरये सच्चित् सुख स्वरूपाय स्वामिने तापहारिणे. We were discussing the sutra which says samadhi can be derived or divided into two varieties. One is sampragnata and other is asampragnata. And then we discussed that sampragnata samadhi, which is an intense form of concentration, far more intense than meditation, that which is known as dhyana, is samadhi. So, an intense form of dharana becomes dhyana, where the sense of subject is lost. And when you go further deeper and make that meditation more intense than dhyana, it becomes samadhi. So samadhi has been classified by Patanjali into two major varieties. One is known as sampragnata, other is asampragnata. Sampragnata, pragna means consciousness or awareness. So Purusha being the only thing which is self-aware in the universe, anything which deals with meditation on the Purusha or Brahman, as it is known in Vedanta, it is sampragnata. Asampragnata, however, deals with Prakriti. We have to remember that all the powers of nature and the material objects that we see around us, Prakriti, meditation on any one of them is, there are four varieties of meditation on Prakriti. It is known as Sampragnata Samadhi. Now, these Samadhi Patanjali has mentioned because they are the source of lot of powers which some human beings show, like reading the mind, like understanding certain things, the secret behind the research, intuitions, the wonderful scientific intuitions which lead to great discoveries. And all those things come under this category of sampragnata. Because so with sampragnata comes the power of controlling nature. It is a four varieties. As I discussed, it was savitarka, when mind meditates upon a particular object again and again. Maybe he is a scientist, he is meditating intensely on certain properties of certain materials or elements. When the mind meditates upon an object again and again by isolating it from other objects, gross material phenomena, when one uh, meditates intensely, thinks of a particular thing in nature, which is an object, which is made of elements. If one thinks on that and it isolates it from other objects. For any kind of concentration, you should isolate it from other objects. Otherwise, you can't concentrate. You can't concentrate. Mind can do only single tasking. It cannot do multitasking. Unitasking only it can do. Otherwise, its energy is scattered. It can try to attempt multitasking, but because of its lack of focus, if it cannot focus on a particular object, we say one person cannot concentrate. And if he cannot concentrate on a subject or an object, on a particular object, then he cannot, the secrets behind that object will not be revealed to him. So there is one variety where which is known as savitarka. Vitarka means with thinking. When the mind meditates upon an object again and again by isolating it from other objects. But the what are the objects? As I told you, there are 24 insentient categories of nature. And meditating on any one of those 24 insentient categories of nature is known as Savitarka Samadhi. Savitarka concentration or Savitarka intense Savitarka concentration, which leads to Savitarka Samadhi, is meditating on one of the 24 categories which I listed, and I will list it again for your reference. We discussed what the different things are there. Prakriti, you say Mahat, then you have Buddhi, Aham, the reactive mind, Manas. Then we have the Gyanendriyas, 5 Gyanendriyas, 5 Karmendriyas, 5 Tanmatras, and 5 Panch Mahabhutas. So 20 plus 4. So Mahat, Buddhi, Aham, Manas. So these are the subtle elements which we see in Prakriti. As I told you, Mahat is the cosmic or universal mind. Buddhi is the individual refined mind, not Manas. Then Aham is the ego, which gives us the sense of being, which gives us a sense of being a subject as individual subjects. So because of our ego, we feel we are separate from other people, other egos. So we don't realize our identity with the Purusha, which is not in one of these 24 categories. All the other 24 categories belong to Prakriti. So it is the play of Prakriti which is going on, and we can choose any one of the objects. We can meditate on Buddhi, we can meditate on Aham, we can meditate on Manas, we can meditate on the 5 Gyanendriyas, uh, which are the subtle organs. We can meditate on the Karmendriyas, which are the gross organs like hand and other things, feet, and so many other things. I listed those things. Then there are 5 Tanmatras, Agni, Vayu, and all the subtle elements which are not seen. But those subtle elements, there is a subtle Indriya and a gross Indriya. There is a subtle Tanmatras which form the material universe as we see, which are again divided into 5 categories, that Pancha Mahabhutas, the solid, liquid, gaseous, and all those things we see in nature. We can perceive them with our sense organs. So the 5 subtle Tanmatras which are not seen, not perceivable by the sense organs, and the Pancha Mahabhutas which you can see when they are manifest. So there is a subtle side to the Tanmatras and a gross side to the Tanmatras. There is a subtle side, 5 Gyanendriyas, the objects of perceiving things, and the Karmendriyas, which result in work. So these are the 20 categories plus Manas, 21, Aham, ego, that is 22, Buddhi, that is 23, and Mahat, the universal or cosmic Buddhi, the sum total of all Buddhis, is the cosmic mind, which is known as Mahat. So Prakriti is naturally, it is one, when is one with the Purusha, it is Avyakta. When that Avyakta becomes Vyakta, the unmanifest becomes manifest, then 24 categories of nature can be perceived. But who is the one who perceives is the same? There is only one sentient Purushas, but he appears to be many Purushas because of the ego. So the individual ego which is nothing but a tattva of Prakriti, that gives us the illusion that we are separate. So that unified feeling comes only when you meditate on the Purusha. But here we are talking of the 4 types of samadhi, concentrations, lower concentrations. We have to make it very clear. Patanjali has described these things as lower concentrations. With the Savitarka Samadhi, a lowest type of concentration, you can achieve scientific success. You can know the secret behind all the matters. But with the help of meditation on the subtle things like the mind, you may have developed certain slightly higher powers like reading the mind and so many things you can see, special talents people have, but they are all useless because what you can perceive externally, that is enough disturbance in our life. We get so much of distracted by Purusha, by the Prakriti, so many categories of Prakriti, so many Panchabhutas, Pancha Tanmatras, they are already disturbing us and scattering our mind, which is against the very principle of yoga. Yoga wants us to make the mind one-pointed. It is already scattered. Now we use this and meditate on the other categories like Manas and develop some powers. It is leading to more distractions. Some people said, oh, what a great power. to be able to read others' mind. Then the wise people say you have enough problems in your own mind. You are not able to handle one mind. And by reading others' mind, you are getting involved in so many other minds. And as a result, you are increasing your confusion. And uh, there is more and more distraction. So more and more vrittis. So Patanjali is warning us that they may reveal the secret behind the objects or the subtle things like powers over the mind, trying to understand somebody else's mind, but they will only add to the confusion. The more subtle you get diversified, in the gross universe itself is so diverse, and there are so many temptations that you get diversified. It's impossible to focus on the Purusha. But you imagine a state when you start delving into the subtle tanmatras, you meditate on that, and they start revealing the secrets. The gross objects itself is a miracle. To decipher the miracle of physical existence, science has been trying so hard to understand the nature of simple tanmatras and the simple panchamahabhutas, the external world. So what about the indriyas, how we perceive things? That will be adding to the complication. Further, when you go to the level of the manas, the reactive mind, and we try to read our own minds and others' mind, we will be overwhelmed with the variety and diversity that Prakriti tries to establish or tries to create. And the creation is so complicated that the more complicated our mind becomes, the more unstable it becomes, and then we fall down from samadhi. That is why when understanding Savitarka Samadhi, which is the lowest type of concentration, Patanjali warns you that this trying to meditate upon an object by isolating it from other objects may give you concentration, but at the same time it is a lower type of achievement which will prevent you from meditating on the sentient Purusha, the pure consciousness, which alone can give you peace. Otherwise, you are dragging the ideas. Suppose you are able to read certain people's mind, or maybe you are developing some powers by focusing on certain things like the mind, mental space. You may be able to unravel, but what will it result? As it is, we are preoccupied with our own minds, the confusion within our own minds, and you add to it the confusion of other minds. So that's why psychiatrists have sometimes a very bad time, because they have a very difficult time dealing with their own minds, because they are uh, uh, trying to decipher the complicated minds of other patients. And if they are not very careful, if they don't overdo it, or maybe if they cannot detach themselves, then it can affect their own mind. So, Savitarka Samadhi, Patanjali warns us that trying to be too curious, as they say, curiosity killed the cat. So trying to be too curious of things which do not concern us can deter us from our journey towards the Purusha. That's one important thing one has to remember. This part of yoga, as I told you, is totally dependent on the 24 categories. This type of yoga means this type of samprajnata samadhi, which is again divided into savitarka, where you meditate on certain external objects, isolating it from other objects. So when you focus on certain objects, the secrets behind that objects are revealed to you. And that is how scientists makes discoveries. You can meditate on the subtle things. You can meditate on the forces, the gravitational force. And that's how Newton made all the different discoveries about forces. So it's not necessary that you meditate on one particular category. All the 24 categories of Prakriti, they are equally they can be equally used effectively as an object of meditation, giving rise to different powers and results, which Patanjali says are dangerous. So the first warning has to be given that no doubt there are these types of samadhis, but you have to be careful, because once you get stuck into it, then you will be dragged into so many complications that it will be difficult to extricate yourself from the subtle prakriti on which you are meditating. It is always better to meditate on the sentient Purusha, which is the meditation which is normally recommended. We meditate on Sri Krishna not as a part of Prakriti. Sri Krishna is not Prakriti, he is the Purusha, the sentient Purusha, whom we try to personify, try to imagine. He is the object, he is the doorway through which we meditate on the infinite or sentient Purusha. Now, this can happen, or this Brahman meditation on Brahman by taking the Ishta takes you towards higher and higher samadhis. You can bypass all these lower samadhis because it's just like wasting time. Now, one important point I would like to mention that some of these samadhis, when you meditate for a long time, say over a period of years, over the principle of weight, for example, so you can get control over the gravity. And people have shown by intense meditation of several years that they can become as light as a feather. In fact, they say when Sri Krishna's had passed through all these stages, but he never got stuck at the powers. No doubt, while one is passing through these stages, one gets tempted and gets stuck. But Sri Krishna was one who completely overlooked or completely bypassed these powers, and which is the result of the Samprajnata Samadhi, meditation on the 24 different objects. The different objects will give rise to different powers, but they will they will be an obstacle on our path to the sentient Purusha. So, one common thing you have to remember that egoism, the so-called ego, which is also one category, one of the 24 tattvas, are the categories of Prakriti, the will and the mind, the reactive mind, have a common basis, which is chitta or the mind stuff. We cannot see it. It is known as chitta, the samskaras, the mind stuff, from which they are all manufactured. So how does the mind manufacture all these thoughts? Thoughts are also a form of subtle energy. Just as when you strike two stones, there is a spark and fire comes. Flint stones, for example. When you strike two flint stones, you get fire. So where does that energy come from? By some kind of interaction with some force of nature you take, that is rubbing together, and then they produce a spark and it catches fire. So also our mind stuff, the chitta, if you can imagine it as a lump of matter, it is actually a lump of matter, a subtle matter. So mind is finer matter. So that mind stuff takes some of the forces, some of the energy which is around you. There's a lot of energy floating around. There's gravitational energy, electric energy. They are more effective on material, but still electric energy can have an effect on our thoughts. The magnetic energy also have. That's why they have this magnetic healing. There's so many forces of nature which can be harnessed, and they interact upon the body. But their effect is not so much, because our mind is fine and subtle. The more subtle your mind is, the less it will be affected by the external gross forces. You have to remember that. So when people complain a lot saying that the vibrations are not good, you can make yourself strong. You can make your willpower strong. We can make your mind strong by not allowing the external forces to react. It's only these external forces, these vibrations, they affect only a weak mind. You have to remember this always. So there is this hope that if we somehow through yoga make our mind strong, and and by reducing the ego, the chitta or the mind stuff is not a liable. If it goes to the level of buddhi, then it cannot be acted upon by other minds so easily. The external forces, the mind stuff takes the forces of nature and projects them as thought. There must be something where force and matter are one. You see matter, it is burnt, it gets converted into force, some heat or light or something. You burn wood, the wood is not there, only some uh, uh, black charcoal remains, or maybe some ash remains. The whole thing is burnt. Where has the material gone? It has been converted into energy. So force and matter are interacting with each other all the time. So also the minds are interacting. The gross minds are interacting with each other. But the more subtle your mind becomes, the less impact, or the less impact will be there by the external vibrations on your mind. Your mind will be fenced around, as Sri Ramakrishna used to say. If you fence around a growing plant by the hedge, if you build a hedge around a growing plant, it can protect it from causing any harm to that tender plant. So you have to protect your mind by solitude, not allowing in the beginning. But once it grows, once the mind becomes strong, then you don't need the hedge. Then all the vibrations, all the forces, external forces, they don't cause any impact on your minds. So the where force and mind are one, force and matter are one in Prakriti, it is known as Avyakta. That from Avyakta has come the whole nature. Prakriti is manifesting herself as and separating herself as force on one side and matter on another side, and interacting. The whole play of force and matter is when the Avyakta becomes Vyakta, and the whole nature again has a tendency to become one and then merge with the Purusha. So behind the essence of intelligence is known as Purusha, which is observing the whole play of Prakriti. The 24 elements, subtle and gross, 5 subtle elements, the 5 subtle indriyas, that is the sense organs, and the 5 gross sense organs, 5 subtle matter materials, and 5 panchamahabhutas, the 5 gross matter. So 20 plus manas, the lower reactive mind, aham, ego, buddhi, the higher mind, and the mahat, they all form the cosmic mind, the entire play of Prakriti which is going on. The secret is to meditate on the Purusha, not the Prakriti. But at the same time, as I told you, the Savitarka will give you certain powers over certain elements because you have focused on that. You discover certain secrets and it will be of some use, but not it will not make you free. You will not be free from bondage. But knowledge is power. As soon as we begin to know a thing, if you begin to know matter, it will reveal its secrets. If you begin to meditate on the different elements, subtle elements, it will reveal its secrets. But that doesn't guarantee you freedom. Because if you focus on the subtle mind, say you meditate on the mind, you meditate on all the minds, you will develop certain powers which is a result of that type of meditation or samadhi, savitarka. But unfortunately, they will confuse you more. They will reveal their secrets. They will reveal bigger secrets. But it is like you don't have enough space in your brain for your own thoughts, and you put other people's thoughts, other people's mind, and confuse yourself and create more confusion. Then it is very, very difficult to extricate yourself from those problems. So it is always better. That's why solitude or nirjan vas, solitude is prescribed so much. At least you can protect your mind from external thoughts. That is the idea behind solitude, by the external forces. So when the mind begins to meditate on the different elements, according to Swamiji, it is known as savitarka. So vitarka means questions. By questioning the elements, they reveal their truths to the powers and their powers to the man who meditates on them. It is very simple. We discussed this in great detail. It is nothing but a refined worldly search after enjoyments. When you see the gross material world does not satisfy you, you feel tired. It's like being tired of certain toys. The child wants higher and higher toys. Then he starts meditating on the minds of others, and he confuses others, confuses himself, and creates more problems for himself and others. So it is just adding to the confusion. So there is this, it's a refined kind of, or maybe it's a higher kind of enjoyment, but it is an enjoyment all the same. So in this life, running after these tattvas, the 24 tattvas of Prakriti, whether they are gross or subtle, the suffering is almost increases. The grosser the focus, the lesser the suffering. The higher the focus, if you go deeper and deeper into a thing, The thoughts can create so much of trouble for you that your suffering becomes intense. So they say physical suffering is bad. As it is, we can't avoid physical suffering. We have physical diseases. But if mental suffering is added to it, we added one more level of suffering. And there is no, just as there is no permanent enjoyment in the material world, there's no permanent enjoyment in even in the subtle world. So all these ideas of heaven and all the ideas of life beyond death and all those things, Patanjali says they are the result of lower yoga, the result of Savitarka Samadhi, where you go on questioning the elements. You go on questioning what is this mind, what is this element, what are the what is physics, what is chemistry. So all this inquiry, questioning the elements, gives rise to Savitarka Samadhi, and there is no liberation. Then there is another type of. So, though as a scientist, Patanjali tries to point out the possibilities of Savitarka Samadhi as a science, he never misses an opportunity to warn us against these powers. And the same meditation, now we will talk of the Nirvitarka meditation, the second type of meditation. Nirvitarka meditation is when one struggles to take the elements out of time and space and think of them as they are. You see, when you meditate on, it's a difficult concept to understand, but we have to understand this, what Nirvitarka Samadhi is. Nirvitarka Samadhi, the person does not want, that curiosity is missing. He just meditates on these objects and takes them out of time and space. So naturally, there will be no causation. So he just focuses on these objects in a very, very semi-aware way. He is not fully aware, he is just semi-aware, and he goes into Nirvitarka Samadhi without any question. He doesn't question, he just meditates. Say, for example, somebody is meditating on the photo of Thakur or Sri Ram Krishna, not trying to understand that he is the principle of consciousness, Purusha. If one that understanding is not there and he just meditates on the object, it is a slightly higher type of meditation, because he doesn't have any preconceived notion about these elements. So he doesn't think. It is just a thoughtless meditation without question. When the meditation goes a step higher, the third type of meditation, it takes the tanmatras as its object. It doesn't see the physical object. It tries to think of the tanmatras as an object and thinks of them in space and time. It's difficult to understand, but we have to try to conceive of an object. We try to conceive the tanmatras, the finer things behind that object. Now you can understand how the meditation is becoming finer and finer. But they have the discrimination. They want to know what is the subtle thing behind this fire? What is the subtle thing? We are not meditating on the object as such, but we are meditating on the subtle elements behind the five subtle elements, the five subtle tanmatras. So that is known as savichara. It is called savichara with discrimination, with questioning, savitarka and savichara. Savitarka is on gross elements in time and space. Nirvitarka is on gross elements without time and space, with just a blank mind. And the third is savichara with discrimination, where it thinks of these tanmatras in space and time. How do they pervade all the objects, and all the space ideas of space are still there, and time is there. So you have a sense of time. So that is savichara. But nirvichara, you also think of the fine elements. The fourth type, where the elements are both given up and the meditation is on the thinking organ. So that is nirvichara, not thinking organ, the fine elements without any thought. You just meditate on the fine elements as it is. It is known as nirvichara without discrimination. The next step, the fifth type of is when the elements are given up, both gross and fine. You don't think of the gross element, neither do you think of the tanmatras or the fine elements. And the object of meditation is the interior organ, the thinking organ. You meditate on the manas. So when the thinking organ is thought of as bereft of qualities, activity dull. It is called sananda, the blissful samadhi. So sananda samadhi, the blissful samadhi, ananda, is when you meditate on the thinking organ, that is the mind. Manas is also an organ, remember. It's not just the five indriyas, the eyes, the ears, the subtle eye, the subtle ears, the subtle smell, the subtle tongue. All these things, behind them are the subtle organs. But behind these subtle organs is the subtle mind. So when you meditate on the mind without any quality, either it is active or dull, just meditate on the nature of your mind. It is called sananda or blissful samadhi. When the mind itself is the object of meditation. You focus on the mind itself. You don't focus on the external things. Then the meditation becomes very ripe and concentrated. That is the first sign of your meditation getting higher and higher. But when all ideas of gross and fine materials are gone, and when the sattva state, only ego remains, only the feeling that I am meditating, there's no object, but differentiated from all other objects, it is known as Sasmita Samadhi. The man who has attained to this has attained to what is called in Vedas bereft of body. If he lasts, if he is able to focus his mind and make it concentrated only in the sattvic or the ego, he suddenly gets a feeling that he is not gross. That is a higher state of meditation where he does not feel that he is a body, neither does he feel that he is the prana. So, bereft of body, that is videha, they get a feeling that they are in the body, but they are not connected to the body. So, he can think or think of himself as without his gross body, but at the same time, he thinks of himself as a fine body. Now, this is those in that state. If he somehow manages to disconnect himself from the gross body, still he is not free, because he becomes prakriti layas. Prakriti laya means he becomes one with the subtle elements in the universe. Now, in that state, that is the state normally where we go temporarily when we die. The gross body has gone. But if you do it consciously while you are still in the body, you become prakriti laya, but still you are not free, because you are attached to the subtle elements. The subtle elements, that is all what heaven is. You dream of a heaven where there is no body. You think that after death we will go to heaven, where you will enjoy, if it is a Muslim heaven or Islamic heaven, there will be a lot of water and trees and greenery all around, because most of the thoughts of Islam were developed in a desert. So Swamiji says, for them there is a green and a very place full of water is their kind of heaven. But for a person who is living near the rivers, always seeing water 24 hours, for him perhaps a dry place would be a heaven. So whatever the mind yearns for in a subtle way, it is yearning for luxury, it is yearning for wealth. So it imagines that in my subtle existence, I will enjoy all these things. And he might enjoy, because that is the goal of these lower meditations. They become prakriti laya, the sasmita samadhi. He can think of himself as without gross body, but he still has attachment to the subtle body. So they don't, but those who do not stop even here reach the goal, which is freedom. So Swamiji says, these are the different stages of samadhi which a yogi pass through. Patanjali has given all the lowest: savitarka samadhi, nirvitarka samadhi, savichara samadhi, nirvichara samadhi, sasmita samadhi. All the different levels have been discussed. Each one is slightly higher than the previous one, and they give you different powers on the way. But even the last samadhi, where you even succeed in giving up the idea of the body, even then you will get bound with the subtle universe, and still you will be bound, and you will have your idea of happiness and sorrow. When that state is over, again you will be born with the body. The karma will force you to take up another body. Again you will be in touch with gross. So the idea of prakriti from gross to the subtle prakriti, all the 24 elements can bind you. Even the ego can bind you. So only when you become one with the Purusha, that is what 18 Sutra says, you will get freedom. So there is another samadhi which says Virama Pratyaya Abhyasa Purvaha Sanskara Shesha Anyaha. So there is another samadhi, the 18th verse says, the 18th sutra says, in which is attained by constant practice of cessation of all mental activity. That is, Chitta retains only the unmanifested samskara, only samskaras remain. It is slightly lower than the highest samadhi, but still all your conscious mental activity is stopped. The reactive mind is stopped. And chitta, but the chitta which has your samskaras, the impressions, the subtle impressions which give rise to thought, they are still existing. So they don't vanish. The unmanifested, they are in form of seeds. They are ready to sprout. They have not been destroyed. The chitta has those samskaras, but at least all the mental activity which was voluntary, which happened, that has been stopped. So that is a higher kind of samadhi. Virama pratyaya. Pratyaya means the mental activity. Abhyasa purvaha means with constant practice of, abhyasa means constant practice of suppressing this disturbing mental thoughts. Sanskara shesha anya. Only the samskaras remain. If that is destroyed, then you will get total mukti. But before that, you don't get freedom, but you get a comparatively higher kind of samadhi where the mental activity stops and it is a state of great joy. This is the perfect superconscious asamprajnata samadhi, the state which gives us freedom. Means the higher one, where even the samskaras are destroyed. The first state, the lower state, does not give us freedom, does not liberate a soul. A man may attain to all the powers, yet fall again. All the 24 elements he can meditate. He can get as much power as he wants in the universe. But still, he will go down to the gross level. He has to be born. Again, with great difficulty, he goes to a lower samadhi and gets stuck there. When that enjoyment of that samadhi is over, he thinks, oh, he has got wonderful power of reading other people's mind. But he doesn't know that he is getting stuck, more and more stuck, and then he goes down. It's a very subtle kind of deception which Prakriti plays. That is why it is known as Maya. So Patanjali is warning us not to get stuck at any of these lower samadhis. Perfect superconscious asamprajnata samadhi, the state which only can give us freedom. That is meditation on the Purusha. That is what all our meditation is about. We think about Thakur, we think about Krishna, we think about Rama, any god on whom we meditate as one which is pure consciousness, which has nothing to do with the Mahat, nothing to do with the Buddhi, nothing to do with the Manas, reactive mind, nothing to do with the 20 categories, the Karmendriyas, the 5 Gyanendriyas, 5 Karmendriyas, 5 Tanmatras, and the 5 Pancha Mahabhutas, the gross elements. So from gross to all the subtle elements, you are rejecting one after another. That is Vairagya. And when you focus your mind on the pure consciousness, which for our convenience we meditate as our Ishta, that gives us asamprajnata samadhi, and it liberates the soul. Then the Purusha has no more suffering, no more sorrow. A man may attain to all the powers, but yet fall again. There is no safeguard. We might get stuck at any of these lower samadhis till the soul goes beyond nature. So going beyond nature means going beyond Prakriti. It's very difficult to do so, although the method seems easy. It is very easy when we discuss this as different steps. We think it is, these are the different methods. So it is very easy. Go to Savitarka, then go to Nirvitarka, and we go higher and higher rejecting. But to reject the powers and not get stuck. So there are people who use some of their concentration in so many techniques which we find. There is this Vipassana. There are so many meditation techniques at the lower level where people get obsessed and then they start curing people. They do so many things. because they think that they've developed a kind of supernatural power, not knowing that however great that supernatural power may be, it is just serving one purpose: to drag you down. Nothing in Prakriti can drag you up. The only thing that can drag you from all the suffering permanently, eternally, and give you eternal bliss, eternal existence, and eternal consciousness is meditation on the Purusha and Purusha alone. And that is exactly the secret behind all types of meditation, whether it is Vedantic meditation, yogic meditation. Nobody tells you to meditate on Prakriti. Nobody tells you to meditate on the material powers, the mental powers, and the prana. The prana also can trap us. We handle prana. There are so many pranic healing techniques and so many things. And people get fascinated, just as they get fascinated by controlling electricity. They think they have done a great job. So all the scientific inventions, which is a result of meditation on the gross nature and the gross forces, when we handle a few of these things, when first steam engine was discovered, people thought, what a great achievement man has made. It revolutionized society. But then higher and higher forms of energy came, nuclear energy came. Then all the steam and all those things have become obsolete. So the more we meditate on the gross objects and the gross forces, those secrets are revealed. But they just serve the purpose of inspiring us to go higher. If that doesn't happen, we get stuck. Then we meditate on the prana. We handle the prana and we think we have done a great thing. And we manage to, but we don't realize that at the same time, we are slowly slipping down. So by using our prana to manipulate things outside, we are actually going round and round in circles. And no doubt helping a few people on the way. That is what we think. But we don't understand the harm it causes us. And that is what Patanjali is warning us, that every meditation on the lower uh, elements of Prakriti will give you some power related to that field or some achievement, sense of achievement. But if you get stuck, then you just go down, you don't go up. So only way to rescue is by meditation on the Purusha. So that's why they again and again say Yoga Chitta Vritti Nirodha. We come back to the fundamental definition which we discussed in the second sutra, which gave us the whole secret of yoga. No matter how high your thought is, Chitta Vritti has to be stopped. So that is why this Asampragnata Samadhi alone will give us total freedom. The first state does not give us freedom. Man may attain to all the powers of the universe and yet fall again. There's no safeguard until the soul goes beyond Prakriti. So the method is to meditate on the mind itself. Whenever a thought comes, strike it down, allowing no thought to come, thus trying to make it an entire vacuum. That is the higher meditation. When we can really do this naturally, that very moment we shall attain liberation. That's what Swamiji says. But there is a gradual way to it. We meditate on the conscious principle, take up an object, we start with an object, but we don't take a gross object. We take an object of an Ishta, who is the representation of this consciousness. We have to think of the Ishta, whoever he is, whether it is Krishna, Rama, Christ, Buddha, or any God. If he is not taken or meditated upon as a conscious principle without time, space, and causation, beyond all thoughts, beyond all the mind, ego, and all those things, and not allowing any other thought other than Ishta, then automatically he becomes the doorway through which you uh, go into that Nirvikalpa Samadhi. When we can really do this, that very moment you will be liberated. You will become one with the Purushas. So, but Swamiji gives us another warning. When persons without training or preparation, this is a dangerous meditation. If you do it without proper training, proper advice from a teacher, if you try to make your mind vacant by force, they are likely to succeed only in covering themselves with tamas, the material of ignorance, which makes the mind dull and stupid and leads them to think they are making a vacuum of the mind. So one has to be extremely careful. The idea is not to suppress the mental waves and make it stupid and dull, because tamas is lurking in the background. It will come and occupy us, and that laziness to think, that we will think is the highest state. Oh, I have no thought. We don't realize that it is because of tamas, the tamasic mind, which is dragging us down, and the rajas has gone away. Leave alone sattva, there is no rajas also, so only tamas remains, and that dull and stupid state also appears as if to a sadhaka, but it will not give him joy. He says, my mind is blank, it's not able to think, but I am, then he will never complain. If it is blank in a positive way, if he has controlled the thoughts, then he will be full of joy and bliss. That results only if one meditates on the Purusha or the Brahman, which is a Varishta. But if you do it in a negative way, force the mind not to think of anything, then the only result will be a tamasic mind where there will be no thoughts, but that will be a very, very stupid state, a dull and stupid state. And that vacuum will make you more miserable. It is better to be active than to be have a vacuum. To be able to really do that, to make the mind really blank, willingly and consciously, one has to manifest the greatest strength. So we have to make sure uh, that we have to have greatest strength and control over our organs. It is a very slow process, and if it comes accidentally, be certain about the fact that it is the tamasic state you are falling into. You suddenly don't go into that thoughtless state. It is a state which is achieved by constant struggling with the lower mind, taking it to the state of buddhi, making it sattvic, developing excellent moral virtues, practicing of brahmacharya and so many continents and other things. After purifying the mind a lot, when it becomes stable, when it becomes steady, and there is no thoughts, that requires tremendous strength and fight against the sense organs. The sense organs, if somebody is leading an immoral life and still claims to have reached that state, there is something wrong. So Swamiji is warning. It may be, this thoughtlessness may be the result of tamas. If one on one side is fully tempted by the material world and at the same time claims, that is why yogis don't claim that they have reached. If they reach that thoughtless state by power of their meditation, then they become totally transformed like Sri Ramakrishna. So that is very rare. So one has to be careful that unless one has tremendous control, self-control, and control one's thought slowly, and control slowly, gradually practice vairagya and abhyasa, then you reach that asampragnata. When this asampragnata samadhi is reached, the samadhi becomes seedless. What is meant by that? It is known as seedless. What are the seeds? It is a concentration where there is pure consciousness and mind succeeds. The mind succeeds, the chitta succeeds in quelling the waves in the chitta, and in concentration where there is consciousness, the mind succeeds in quelling, just stopping the waves of chitta. But the tendencies, the waves remain in the form of tendencies. Samskaras are still there. But when you in seedless meditation, you burn these seeds. There is no possibility of any future thought coming. So till then, till you burn the samskaras, the old samskaras, they are sitting like tigers, ready to pounce upon you. So you have to be careful. And the waves remaining in the form of these tendencies, they may not be coming, but suddenly you will realize, or from where have these thoughts come to my mind? So they come and destroy you. That is why when it is seedless, there are no more seeds in the mind, out of which the rebirth is manufactured. The ceaseless life of birth and death, followed by birth. Because of these seeds or samskaras, again and again the plant sprouts. So yoga says complete cessation, destruction of that bija, seedless samadhi. That's why it is known as seed. Seed is given, this example is given because seed is responsible for sprouting. For thousands of years, if the seed is lying there and suddenly it gets water and other things, suddenly it will sprout. But if the seed is burnt, dagda bija, then nothing remains. So that is what you may ask, what state would that be in which there is no mind, there is no knowledge? So Swamiji is asking a question. Suppose we get that seedless samadhi or nirbija samadhi or asampragnata samadhi. Then what is the use if there is no mind? Now we are having this mind, there's so much of so-called knowledge. But what we call knowledge, ordinary knowledge, is a lower state than beyond knowledge. That you should see that the extreme always look very much alike. If there is a very low vibration of light, it doesn't, if those who know physics know that if the vibration is too low, then you can't see the light. If the vibration is very high above the visible spectrum, then you can't see. Only in a small spectrum of frequency of vibration, you can see the light. So similarly, ignorance is the lowest state. Knowledge is the middle state. The knowledge, so-called the physical knowledge and our buddhi, the so-called vernacular concept of buddhi, intelligence and all those things which we think is a higher knowledge, is actually a middle state. And beyond knowledge, pure consciousness is the highest state. But the two extremes seem the same. So it seems same. So sometimes people mistake the highest state beyond sattva, which is very, very, very rare, with that of tamas, the lowest state, which is out of ignorance. So one has to be extremely careful not to confuse these two. So the two extreme states, the lowest and the highest, are similar in the sense they look similar, but there's a huge difference. And knowledge is the middle state. That's why Swamiji says, first use your reason, try to argue, reason, think consciously, and then go beyond thought. Just don't think that by making the mind dull, you will go back to ignorance and you will think it is a very high state. I have no thoughts, I am peaceful, but it doesn't last long because the seeds are there. It will sprout anytime and cause more havoc than before. So what is the result of this higher concentration, practice of this higher? All old tendencies of restlessness and dullness will be destroyed. So this is the similar to that of the case of chemicals which we use, certain chemicals, but by good you remove the bad tendencies and then you have to throw away both. The example given is like that of a chemical. You put a purifying agent, there is some stain there. What does the purifying agent do? It dissolves the stain and then you have to wash away both. It's not that the stain remover will have to be kept. The stain remover removes the stain and then washes itself out. So also all the dirt which is there in our mind, the bad tendencies, have to be countered by good tendencies. That is the importance of moral virtues. We practice moral virtues to counter our negative virtues, and then we have to get rid of both and merge ourselves in consciousness. So we will continue this sutra in the next class and see if there are some questions, because this topic is little difficult. We have to understand it properly. Yes. Now, what is the relationship between savitarka, nirvitarka with savikalpa and nirvikalpa? Oh, it will take a lot of time, because savikalpa and nirvikalpa, it is the words used in Vedanta. Savitarka and nirvitarka they are lower types of samadhis which are associated with Patanjalis. They are totally different, because the paradigm which we follow, now we are learning yoga. Let us not confuse it with the Vedantic meditations. So when we come to Savikalpa and Nirvikalpa, we have to, they follow different type of philosophy. So we have to remember that when we compare these names, they belong to different systems. So it is like comparing biological terms with terms of physics. So they are entirely different. There may be some similarity, but we will discuss it in some other class. But Savitarka and Nirvitarka, you understood. Savitarka is with by questioning, and Nirvitarka is just meditating on the object as it is without questioning. So this is totally different from Savikalpa and Nirvikalpa. Now we will come to another question which says, is there a recording of this, Maharaj? If there is, please let me know. How can I access it? Is there a recording of this? Means this talk. Okay, I would like to take comprehensive. This is recorded now, and every talk I give is recorded Friday, Saturday, Sunday on Zoom. It is recorded, and finally it will be posted on my Facebook page. That is Swami Sarvasthananda is the name of the Facebook account. So you can log in and send a friend request, so you can access all the talks which have been given for the last few years. I think most of them are there. All you have to do is see the particular date. So all these talks are there. You can definitely take notes. You can hear it again and again. Yes. It seems that we have to be extremely careful of a guru constantly. That is right. Yeah, the idea is when you deal with meditation, you have to be extremely careful even when you are in the medical field. Unless you have a good doctor to guide you, you are likely to make mistakes. So when you are dealing with the mind, then you have to be careful whether we have understood these terms properly, whether we are performing the meditation properly, and not confusing ourselves. Because these states, as Patanjali says, there are so many types of meditations on Prakriti. Each one is liable to uh, put you in more bondage. And there will be some books which will tell you, oh, this is a wonderful power you have got, and it may motivate you and think that you are having some kind of kundalini is rising. Many people, they feel some kind of physiological feeling in the spine and they think it is kundalini. There are so many confusions. So one has to be very careful and uh, go to the source books, which is Patanjali's Yoga Sutras, and they tell us very clearly how to proceed step by step. What is Savitarka? What is Nirvitarka? What is the real nature of Samadhi? What happens? So all these things, whether you follow Yoga, Vedanta, or a combination of Yoga, Vedanta and Tantra, which is the sadhana which we do in the Ramakrishna mission, then the then you will be much more safer. Now there is one last question I will say. What ego means and what happens without ego? Ego is nothing but a feeling that we get that we are limited. Ego has a tendency to show us, unless it is a ripe ego. If it is a ripe ego, that is a positive ego, then it will say, I am a child of God. That is good. But if it is a raw ego, you feel limited, you feel inferior, because you feel that the powers of nature are overwhelming you. So since ego is a product of Prakriti, holding on to the lower ego, Ahankara, will make you more and more narrow. You start quarreling with everybody, you get angry when certain things are not fulfilled, you lose patience. So these are the manifestations of the lower ego. But the higher ego, no doubt, gives you a little pride, but that is a very sattvic pride, that I am a child of God. And it's a positive ego which says that things are under my control, nobody can influence me, nobody can put me down, in the sense, not in the worldly sense, but nobody can stop me from my goal of becoming one with the pure consciousness, which is the goal of life. So that is what happens without ego. I mean, without ego or with a higher ego. So there are two types of ego, as I told you. So you have to be a bit careful. So I shall take leave now. Om. If there are any more questions, otherwise I'll take leave. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Tat Sat. Sri Ramakrishna Pranamastu.